Hey, welcome to the 254th episode of Just Shoot It, a podcast about filmmaking, screenwriting, and directing. This episode is brought to you by patrons Kyle Hausman-Stokes, Jesse Mendelson, and Matt Mahoney. I'm Matt Enlow.
And I'm Oren Kaplan, and today we have director LP on the show. She has been around in the comedy world since when we started. I feel like we kind of started around the same time. But she started at the right place, and we started at the wrong place. No, but she's awesome. She started out as an assistant at Gary Sanchez, Will Ferrell, and Adam McKay's company. And now she's directing a bunch of TV shows, a lot of comedy stuff. She had a movie on Netflix last year, Desperados, that starred Nasim Pedrad, and I think it was the #1 movie on Netflix for a little while. Really fun, really interesting to see her climb from basically comedy web videos to studio features and TV shows, right?
Yeah.
The climb that Matt and I are still, kind of waiting for.
Yeah,
so studios, give us a call. Email us, justshootitpod@gmail.com.
Everything in due time. But yeah, it was a real treat to talk to LP. We take a stroll down memory lane talking about web video back in the day and the nature of comedy. But I think we do manage to parse a lot of the different things that she's learned along the way and kind of formed them into some teachable moments. So even though you may not be looking at getting a job at Funny or Die on the ground level anytime soon, there's still a lot of great nuggets that we extracted from her. And, you learn a heck of a lot directing sketch after sketch after sketch and then moving into television and movies. So it's a great conversation.
Yeah. Well, cool. Before we talk to LP, though, Matt, I kind of had something I wanted to talk to you about, and our conversation with LP reminded me of it, which is how important a director's IMDb profile is, because I have some thoughts on it, and I'm sure your thoughts are probably more valuable than my thoughts, but LP has like 66 directing credits because of all her Funny or Die stuff is on her IMDb profile, and she was not crazy about that. And I personally have had a really ugly looking IMDb page until very recently because I became an IMDb pro. I have been for many years using my wife's account, which is limiting because you can't upload photos of yourself on your wife's account. So I've changed it.
It's there's a few really crucial things that IMDb Pro allows you to do, but the one that helps with the cosmetics of your page is being able to upload the photo. Imagine if, on any social media, imagine if on Facebook you had to spend $100 a year making sure that you had a profile photo. It'd probably be worth it.
I mean, maybe not Facebook right now for me, but yeah, I see. But yeah, so I was looking for write-offs at the end of last year in December, and literally on December 31st, I was like, oh, IMDb Pro, I can write that off. I'm going to just buy a year subscription now. I think it's like $150, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much
yeah,
is
something like
Pro?
that. I think during December, actually, they run a little sale, I think, so.
Yeah, then I was looking at my IMDb. Because I've been doing a lot of commercials lately, I haven't really been on IMDb that much. And I do think they actually put commercials on there. They also put podcasts on there, which is a great thing to mention to our listeners. If you look up Just Shoot It podcast on IMDb, if you can give us a rating, that would be amazing. Feel free to give it a 10 out of 10. If you want to give it a 9 out of 10, I guess that's fine. But no, give it whatever rating you want. But having ratings, I think, helps us. And IMDb is kind of like, I feel like back in the day, that's what made you legitimate, right? You had a credit on IMDb.
Yeah.
Do you still think that's true nowadays?
I think that we are both at points in our careers where we're looking at IMDb less and less. But I use IMDb Pro all the time currently in kind of like doing a little bit of research on a person. There are aspects of it that allow you to see like who you have in common in terms of like credits, like, oh, I worked at this place and so did they. So this person might be a connector, things like that. There are some honest to goodness social network aspects of it. And also it has contact information for representatives. So if I need to reach out to an actor to make an offer, or I want to pitch someone on X, Y, or Z, all that contact information is hidden behind the paywall of IMDb Pro.
Right. And that's how I've always thought of IMDb Pro. It's like, hey, you can see someone's star meter rating, which is important to some people that are trying to put together a movie. But more importantly, you can get the contact information reps. Let's say you want to find a new manager and you know, hey, this director is kind of similar to me. I wonder who their manager is and maybe I can contact them. It's a tool that lets you find the Hollywoody agents and managers and lawyers and things like that if you want, production companies. But I never really thought of it as my face when people look me up on IMDb. And it's funny, when I first moved to LA, like literally on the date, like there was always a joke, like if you were going to go on a date with someone, you like look them up on IMDb, you know, first to see kind of who they are, what they're up to.
Right. And so one of the other things that they allow you to do is augment what you're quote unquote known for, right? So it'll give you a couple credits up top, right? So you could, if you're meeting Oren for drinks, take a look and see that, oh, he's just like that gray little profile icon, Oren Kaplan, and he is known for some old viral videos that he did 10 years ago.
Oh, dude, I was known for literally one of my first short films ever made with no poster, no credit, no anything. It's just like directed Confessions of a Telecommuter in 2004 or something. That was what I was known for.
So if you're just kind of like meeting with Oren for the first time, you know, you owe his manager a favor or something like that, and you're having him come up real quick, and you're going to do a quick 5-minute deep dive on Oren before he makes his way past the security guard. One of the first things you'll do is IMDb them, right? And so at a glance, it's nice to see what you're most proud of, for instance, and maybe a flattering photo of what you look like.
Right. Well, honestly, I looked you up and I was like, oh my goodness, if I was listening to this podcast and wanted to hire a director for some scripted narrative thing, and I looked up Matt and I looked up Oren on IMDb, of course I would hire Matt. There was a picture of Matt at Comic-Con speaking on some panel. He's known for all these shows that have either famous people in them or they have at least posters. And what's Oren known for? Being a giant question mark and then directing 5 short films with posters that are question marks and actors you've never heard of. Yeah. So I honestly kind of feel like I'm sure I've lost opportunities because my IMDb page was so ugly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I think everybody takes it with a grain of salt. And I think that at a certain point, it kind of comes back around where it's like, if you look at the writers in particular on like certain TV shows, or like, you know, when I'm doing the thing that you were describing of like, oh, look up this rep or that rep or whatever, and you scroll to the bottom, oftentimes people who are working quite regularly, it feels like almost sort of cool to not care about your IMDb because you're so busy working, right? There's
of course you're not
a little bit of that
care
to it as well.
When it's like, oh, my last 3 credits are like Avengers and, you know, Nomadland, like whatever things that are like winning awards or they're big blockbusters. But I think when your body of work is a little murkier, like, oh, you've done some things some people have heard of, or you've worked with actors that people have heard of, but they haven't heard of the project, maybe fine tuning it is super helpful.
Yeah. At the very least, if someone can look you up and be like, oh, I see you're known for this show. Ideally, that show was one that you want to talk about and not that one that you're embarrassed by.
And I will say absolutely that if an actor does not have a photo, I don't think of them as a professional actor.
That's true. Yeah. Actors, it's
as unfair
deal.
As that is.
I don't know that it's unfair exactly. You need to know what an actor looks like because their face presumably is going to be in the thing you're shooting. And the database that everyone uses to look at people, actors, and see what their credits are, you know, that should have a tiny bit of TLC. It's the equivalent of like your resume, basically.
Right. Yeah. Well, what do you think? Let's say you don't live in LA yet, or don't live in LA. You've made a couple short films and you got them on IMDb. They played some festivals. How important is it for this director to get an IMDb Pro account, put her photo in there, and, you know, get their IMDb looking spiffy? Do you think it's worth the $150 investment when you're just at the very beginning of your career?
You know, I would say maybe not, but I think that I think it's certainly worth exploring all of the free aspects of IMDb and like taking those to the limit, because IMDb is basically a wiki. And so the paywall of IMDb Pro does limit a handful of things that are especially useful if you live in Hollywood. But if you don't, most of the good parts of IMDb you can do without paying, basically. So I think you can upload photos for your project. You can upload posters. You can add all of the cast and crew and all of that stuff. You can flesh it out in a meaningful way before you spend a penny. So I think the last thing that you have to worry about is your photo, and that can take a beat, I would say. You know, if times are tough and you're looking to just kind of put that money into films instead of IMDb Pro, I think that's certainly okay.
And I do think it's worth mentioning, if you are trying to submit things to IMDb, which is, you know, the method in which you put your projects on there and add the cast and crew, if you do have a pro account, they will look at your submissions before the non-pro accounts. I've noticed with the pro account, literally I get stuff on there like within an hour of when I submit it. And with my non-pro account, it would take a few days.
Yeah. So. The other thing I think that's worth thinking about is I have film school projects on my IMDb the same way that you have those short films that you have on your IMDb. And when they're submitted, it was so exciting to have them. You felt legitimate, like you were saying. And now I would probably rather not have production designer from, 2005 on my IMDb for like a student film. Like, is that a thing I want there now? Probably not. In the same way that LP, perhaps doesn't want every single thing that they've ever done. And I think it's pretty hard to take that stuff off.
Well, so I stupidly put my birth date on there in, when I was like 20 years old, and that is unremovable. And now I'm like, why did I do that?
Yeah, that is genuinely unremovable. And also IMDb was sued by an actor to be like, hey, that's private information. I don't want I want people to cast me on what I play, not what my actual age is. And IMDb won the lawsuit. They won their right to display the age of an actor because it's quote unquote public knowledge is held up in court. So there's
the only way you can
get
it removed is if you can prove to them that it's wrong. Right, because that's their whole thing, is that it's they list
their public
facts.
record. Yeah.
Well, anyway, IMDb, check out IMDb Pro. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows about it, but if you
Oren, you don't look a day over 72.
Thank you. If you do want to make your profile, if you want to jazz it up a little bit, check it out. Check out Matt's profile, Matt Enlow. It's pretty nice. You can check out mine too, Oren Kaplan. It's okay. But it's getting better.
Looking good, man. Looking good. Awesome. While you're at it, check out our guest LP, the letter L, the letter P. It's got a lot of great credits on her IMDb as well. And we're about to jump into a conversation as soon as Oren reminds us about our Patreon page.
Yeah. Hey, you want to hear more about my IMDb woes or Matt's sage advice? Then you probably enjoy this podcast. And if you do enjoy it, if you feel like you've gotten anything out of it, you should check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/justshootitpod. It's a place where you can throw a few bucks towards the podcast to help support us. If you give us $10, we'll send you a hat that says Just Shoot It. It's awesome. We're all caught up on the hat mailings. I've gotten it down. I can mail you a hat. If you want to catch any sort of deadly virus from me, give us $10. I will try to cough on something and mail it to you. Just kidding. Just going to send you a hat. And yeah, patreon.com/justshootitpod lets you do it. And we appreciate all the support.
So LP, you have an illustrious career, but I think you and our paths first crossed at Funny or Die.
FunnyOrDie.com.
The website that made many careers back in the day, not that long ago. It feels like ancient history in a funny way, but it was like a big thing.
I mean, it was kind of long ago.
Well, it started, I think it started in 2009 was Pearl. And at the time that Pearl got made, and what we mean by Pearl is the landlord video, I was working for Gary
Where
Sanchez.
Will Ferrell is being yelled at.
Yes.
By a baby.
A child cursed and yelled at, demanding the rent.
I want my money. You're an alcoholic.
Yeah, it was the perfect internet video with a cursing baby and a celebrity, and the internet ate it up. And at the time that they shot that, I was the assistant at Gary Sanchez Productions.
Oh, cool.
And
so you already had a cool job.
I had already gotten the coolest job I'd ever had.
Yeah, that's top, 1% of cool jobs.
Yeah, it was like, and the company had just started. So Gary Sanchez was Will Ferrell and Adam McKay's production company. And it had just started. So it was me and those guys and a producer named Chris Henchy and Jessica Elbaum. And we just like hung out and played video games. It was the coolest.
Whatever happened to them, huh?
I know. It's a shame those guys didn't go on to do anything, but they helped me out. And one day they were like, hey, we're going to go shoot this video with the baby. She's repeating everything I said Adam McKay, and we're going to have her yell at Will, and we're going to shoot this little video where we might start a website. Okay, I'll see you guys on Monday. So they shoot this video.
So funny or die, when you were working there wasn't even like the website wasn't even a thing.
She was Gary Sanchez, just to kind of, if you're not obsessed with Will Ferrell and Adam McKay, their production company basically.
Yeah, so I was just the assistant in the office, answering the phones, reading scripts, doing bits all day, and then so they shoot this video, and they come back the next week, and we've got an editor editing it, and we're laughing, and we're like, this is great. We should put it on this website that CAA and these hedge fund people want us to do. All right, we'll see what happens. We put it up and we email it to like a couple of our friends to see what happens. And it immediately starts like getting passed around, and the phone is ringing and people are calling, and we're watching the hits go up from like 1,000, 10,000. Like it was just so fun and weird. It was like Funny or Die. The website itself had, 10 videos on it at that point.
I have a question actually, because this is so early in just the concept of comedy videos online. Did you use the term viral? Like,
I don't think we knew that yet.
That wasn't popular yet, right? Like, that's kind of, you taught us what going viral was with that video. I feel like
we didn't know. We knew it was awesome what was happening, but we didn't know that was a term. And then that turned into like everyone wanted a viral video, and we're like, you can't bottle it. Don't ask us for one. But so this website...
And then you're like, fine.
We'll do it. Give us the money. We'll do it. So then this video took off in such a way that they were like, okay, this is a company now. We're going to start making videos regularly. And they knew I wanted to be a writer. And so they were like, we have a writing job for you. It's going to be in the kitchen, and you can write videos for this website and sit at the kitchen table. And it was me and Jake Szymanski and Brian Safi and Amy Rhodes. And we just started making silly videos for this website and calling Will's friends and asking John C. Reilly to be in stuff and shooting things out in the courtyard. And everything was very like guerrilla style, like hold your own boom mic, buy your own props. Like we have 20 minutes to get this dumb idea down and figure it out. And it just started growing from there. And as we were making stuff, I was writing sketches and they were being shot. And then it just sort of out of necessity, I started directing my own sketches. And I hadn't gone to film school or anything, so I didn't really have a grasp on like how to make stuff, except I was watching other people direct my scripts, and I was like, I can do that. I know where I want people to stand and how I want them to say the thing and what I want it to look like. And so I just started doing it more and more and got more confident. And then our crews started to grow, and you had like a DP and a sound guy, and stuff started happening, and it got bigger and better. It was amazing.
Well, and as your crews are growing, part of it also is that like Funny or Die kind of became sort of almost like a press junket stop. You know, it was very cool for celebrities to like do a funny video that also would probably promote the movie that was about to come out or something like that.
That's how we got most of the people to do it. Because like, why are you coming to do a free video at this website that may or may not go viral?
Right. All of these children are here. They've written something for you.
We used to have pitch meetings, and they would come in and sit at the end of the table, and we would just throw crazy ideas at them.
Sure. Yeah,
One of the best ones was Marion Cotillard, who's like a wonderful French actress. And we pitched her all these like crazy ideas. And at the end of the meeting, she was like, I like the fart and the titty ideas.
Right. I think I saw that. Boobs glasses or something?
Yeah,
or
it
does
was
she have boobs on her forehead?
Forehead titties, where
Titties,
you look a woman in the eyes.
Yeah, where she
her
literally
boobs
had
are up here.
prosthetic breasts on
Yes.
her forehead.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was a fancy movie she was promoting too, right?
Yes, I'm forgetting what it was now, but
maybe World War II is involved, or like,
yeah. When she came in and she was
fancy.
like, "I'm tired of playing depressed women. Let me do something silly," and she sure did. It was a great video.
Well, the crazy thing is this kind of like access to celebrities is like, that was like a super unique situation because, like, Matt used to work at Comedy Central. Like we did things for New Form that was like kind of like spawned off from like a Ron Howard company, and it's not like you can be like, hey, Ron, can you call Jack Black and tell him to be in my video? Even when my friend works for Margot Robbie's company or it's not like they're just like calling up celebrities that are just coming over and being in their videos. That it seems like it was a unique situation that it wasn't just like Will Ferrell and Adam McKay's name on there. They were actually like getting people to be in the videos, which seems...
Well, and CAA also was
opportunity.
part of the hedge fundy sort of
Yeah,
side of
CAA
things,
would
right?
help us out a little bit. And then, we had like a PR person eventually who would get people, and some hustler producers. Mike Farah, who is the CEO now, he was there hustling people to get in videos and do things for causes or get a bunch of celebrities together and just trying to make noise.
So while all this is happening, right? Like everyone, it's at the same time that like people are getting TV shows from, Twitter accounts and things like that. It's a very fun time to be making comedy on the internet. And I think everyone was aware of that and all kind of caught by surprise too, right? It wasn't like going into comedy when we were younger was a glamorous plan. And so how conscious of all of that kind of happening around you were you? Like, were you just kind of like riding the wave, or when did you become calculated of like, oh, I'm a filmmaker now. I'm directing is going to be my job?
I think that took me a while. When we were working there and things were happening so fast, you were making like a video every other day. You were like shooting one, and then the next day you're editing it, and then you're on to like, what else can I do? So it just felt very like constant with that stuff that you almost couldn't zoom out and find the bigger picture of what you were doing. But I guess like, there was a staff of us there, writers and directors, and people started to get agents and like go out for TV pitches. And so you kind of like started to see it happen. And I had reps too. And I guess it wasn't until right before I left, which was in 2014, that I started to get attached to movies and like really see like, okay, it's time for me to fly off and do something besides internet videos that are 3 minutes long.
Because in a funny way, it's also like, it's a dream come true, right? To just be making cool, weird videos that people actually see with your friends,
And they're paying you, and A-list people are being in them, and it was a dream.
Yeah, it's cool offices too, like this.
Yeah,
ping pong tables all over the place.
Yeah,
and
there's
stuff,
like an arcade game, and like,
there's probably beer on Thursdays or something.
totally, yeah. Someone picking up Chick-fil-A in the morning.
But I guess what I'm curious about, LP, is at that time, because I think a lot of us have experienced this thing where we're making these viral videos. We have some celebrities, we have some interest, we have a lot of PR and things. And we're like, oh, this is like my way into Hollywood. And then you go and you talk to like some manager at Anonymous Content or something. And they're like, yeah, we don't care about your, web videos. How much currency did like having these viral video hits have in your career in terms of like directing a Netflix movie, directing TV shows? Like how did those viral videos help you? And do you think that is like something that new directors like should try to get viral videos, or you think it's totally unrelated?
I think it kind of gets you in the door. It gets a conversation going, but I certainly heard 1,000 times like, oh, we love this video, but she doesn't have anything longer that shows she could do a TV show, or she doesn't have anything shorter that shows she could do a commercial. And so it's like this sort of, it helps, but it also doesn't help unless you're up for a job of directing 3-minute videos.
Right. I wonder, because I did only just a tiny bit of work at Funny or Die, and I always felt like, as basically an outsider, that like because of the celebrities that like there was, or maybe the the scale of the videos, that they were taken slightly more seriously than like College Humor videos or something like that. I wonder, I guess that's an apples and oranges comparison, but I guess you dream that, oh, well, the CIA and Will Ferrell and all of that stuff, like, at least those guys are getting taken seriously, you know?
Well, and then I guess we did start to think of things in a way of like, I really have to like hone in on the genre of this thing I'm shooting so I can show that I can do an action thing or a spooky thing, or, you know, we started to really try to get stylized with stuff so that at least you could say, you know, look at this, the tone of this thing I made. And actually, one of the first movies I got, I ended up having to do a video to get the job. Like the studio Lionsgate wanted me to shoot something to pick between me and another director. If anything, it helped for that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can get a little scrappy, but I think that's really interesting though, and maybe there's something teachable there of like, because I think, you know, people can be in similar sort of jobs, maybe not quite so freewheeling, but like maybe they're at a commercial company or at like a startup or something like that. But the idea of like honing in on the style and saying, okay, well, this is my example to show people that I can do this thing, the X, Y, Z, whatever. Like, is it action? Is it product shots or whatever? Like being able to get a little more pointed in terms of what things you're trying to show people that you can do, I think is really smart.
Yeah, because a lot of people have funny videos, but if you have something and it's the thing that you want to do and you can really show, look, I did a dark comedy thing with a chase scene, or, you know, something that relates to the project you're going after, that at least helps that stuff.
Yeah. Did you ever, like, I guess another thing that I bet people are listening are thinking like, well, you're working with all these celebrities. Like, let's say you make a short Funny or Die video with Danny DeVito. Does that mean that you can be like, hey, Danny, can you do this pilot with me? Or like,
it depends.
You know, those are people that can get things greenlit, right?
It just depends on who that person is and how your relationship ended up being. You know, sometimes celebrities come in and they have 45 minutes and they're going to do the thing and bust out. Other times people come in and they are like chummy and you end up making a friend. And I'm just thinking of Molly Sims came in and wanted to do some videos, and her and I hit it off, and I ended up pitching a TV show with her. We became friends and we pitched a TV show about your best friend being a supermodel. And it didn't sell, but that certainly happened. I'm remembering other people too who like built relationships with people and then were pitching projects with various celebrities or having them star in a pilot they were shooting, or that for sure.
Wow. So what was your kind of first break into like a more traditional Hollywood opportunity?
I think probably, getting the Gary Sanchez job was a big, like, holy shit, I can't believe I got this. And that came because I was working at Upright Citizens Brigade as a night manager. And one of the things that, I don't know who told me this, but I think it's great advice for someone starting out, is to tell people what you want to do. People don't know that you want to be a writer or director unless you tell them. And so if you're cool and they've been getting along with you and then they're looking for a writer or whatever, you have to at least let them know that that's what you're trying to do. So,
do you think you should say, I want to be a writer? Or do you think you should say, I'm a writer? When you're at UCB, do you tell people like,
well, I guess you can say, I'm a writer. I want to write for a TV show, or I'm a writer. I want to sell a screenplay. I was just vocal about wanting to write. And I would tell Matt Walsh and Ian Roberts and Matt Besser when they were in. We all became friendly. And then Matt and Ian got me like writer's assistant jobs on some shows they were working on. And then Ian called me one day and said, hey, my friends are starting a production company. I'm going to get you an interview as the assistant. And I was like, great. Who are your friends? And his friends were Will Ferrell and Adam McKay. And so he gets me an interview. And my first interview is with Adam and Chris Henchy. And Gary Sanchez had just started as a company. So they were trying to put it out there that Gary Sanchez was a real guy. And he was like an investor from Paraguay and a professional soccer player. And he'd given them money to start a company. And it was this whole story. So I go into the office and they start talking about Gary, and he's going to call and try to get me to go to Paraguay, and I can't go. And so I just started to do the bit back with them. I was like, you got it. I would never, blah, blah, blah. We're just joking. They never once asked me a question. Can I answer a phone? Have I done coverage on a script? Nothing. So I left and I was like, I don't know. And I ended up getting the job, I think, because they were just like, she can hang. She can just like be in this office with us.
I think though that I think is worth pointing out though is your topic of like, oh, can you hang? You know, like that's a phrase that people use sometimes. And there's a lot of different ways to unpack it, but I think the big question is like, are you going to be weird around our famous friends? Or are you going to be fun?
Sure,
and like,
sure, maybe, yeah.
I mean, a little bit, right? Like being an assistant, like you're going to be greeting people when they come in the door. You're going to be like telling them how to find parking when they're stressed out. You're setting a tone. And so, yeah, like being able to like do this bit is in a sense more important than like figuring out how to do coverage or whatever. You'll figure that out. You'll get there, right? But like the ease of a personality, you know, sometimes is the thing that they need first. That's less of a guarantee, basically.
It was such a small company too. It was like we have to be with each other. So like, can we hang out with you all day? Let's find out.
Yeah. At Comedy Central, I always used to talk about observing people to learn how to be a person. You know, like sometimes like social graces aren't always natural for me. Like I always kind of have to like, wow, when do I follow up on an email, or like I just second guess things a little bit. And so that training ground of being able to like be in the back row behind the big table and just be like, oh, that's how you do it. Don't be such a weirdo. And it's like,
it's always good
valuable
advice. Don't be such a weirdo.
Yeah. Well, so I want to fast forward a tiny bit because, you know, you said in 2014, you decided to leave Funny or Die. And we spent a lot of time talking about how great that job was. Why did you decide to part ways? Like what was waiting for you on the other side?
I had gotten attached to a couple movies, and so it was time for me to try to go get those. And also Funny or Die was going through like a transition of where they were going to like, the whole internet was changing and how they made creative decisions. And so Funny or Die was sort of going through an overhaul at the same time. So it was just good timing. But I had like 3 movies I got attached to like right in a row. And one of them...
Like as a director?
As a director, yeah. So I was like pitching on these movies and ended up getting 3 of them. Like within 2 months, I got 3 films.
So that's a pretty clear line in the sand.
How are you pitching on movies? Did you have like reps?
So I had agents and they would send me scripts, and there were a couple of scripts I really liked, and ended up, they just sort of lined up that like I was pitching to get these jobs all around the same time.
And you got these agents from your Funny or Die work?
I got these agents from my managers, and I got my managers through like networking with like a friend of a friend who ended up talking about management. And I was like, yeah, I just had left my managers. And she was like, let me set you up with someone, you should have reps. And so it was like, I just happened to be having a lucky conversation with someone who knew someone that would make sense.
But your body of work up until this point was comedy videos.
But it was like halfway into my Funny or Die career. And so she was a fan of my stuff, and she was a producer at a production company. And so she's like, I don't mind sending an email on your behalf.
What I like about that also is that there's like a handful of people in your life as you kind of go like travel through Hollywood that are like more connectors, you know? Who kind of like love introducing people to one another. And like, I feel like sometimes there's that stereotype about Hollywood of like people being really self-interested, you know? You think that maybe people are more guarded with their contacts, but for the most part, people are excited to like, matchmake, you know?
Yeah, I love those people.
Well, if they believe in you.
Yeah.
If they don't believe in you or if someone like hits you up and they're like, hey, do you think your manager might rep me? And you're like, no, like that's what you're thinking. Then you say like, well, I have a weird relationship with them right now, so I'll get back to you.
Yeah. Let me I'll check in. We're kind of in between things right now, but yeah, follow back up.
But that's crazy. So you'd done these Funny or Die videos that a lot of hits. Then off of that you get repped, and now you're pitching on like studio films. When I say now, I mean those 3 movies that you were pitching on.
Yeah,
not today now.
Then I was pitching on. One was set up at a studio. The others were just at. No, I think actually, so much has happened. So this was like 6 years ago now. Only one of those movies got made, which was Desperados that I shot a year or 2 ago. But yeah, one was Lionsgate, one was at CBS Films, and I'm trying to remember where Desperados was at that point. I think they were figuring it out.
Because it ended up at Netflix, right?
Ended up at Netflix, yeah.
Yeah, but that's worth pointing out as well. Like, I feel like sometimes you feel like, oh, someone's just pulling the football out from underneath me, right? Like Charlie Brown. Like 3 movies at reputable big studios, like places your parents have heard of. You can be like, hey, everybody, I've got a movie at CBS, and stuff still falls apart,
Yeah, but still, I mean, that's
time.
pretty incredible, don't you think, all you've done is comedy videos as a director, and you're pitching
and a couple of TV
3
episodes.
studio movies. Oh, you had done some TV by then.
I had done like a handful of TV, like maybe I had done like a Nickelodeon show, and like, I don't know if Alone Together had happened by that point. Maybe not, actually.
Wait, but that's not nothing. So you did it, so you were like DGA, I guess, at this point, right?
No.
Like, how did you do the Nickelodeon show?
Nickelodeon I didn't have to be DGA for. I don't know why.
And how did you get that?
That was a producer that I had met, and she just was like a fan and wanted to give me a shot at a TV thing. Just a great, cool woman, Charlotte Burgett.
I mean, that has to be part of how you are now, like, have reputable agents and are pitching on studio films, right?
I mean, I don't know that anyone gave a shit about that Nickelodeon show, I'll be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I bet they cared more about the Funny or Die videos.
I think
than
they
the Nickelodeon
did.
show.
And you got to go in with your pitch and your presentation and your whole spiel and as many rounds of pitching. And
yeah, I wonder, LP, if the element that maybe is worth maybe digging in on a tiny bit more, because I feel like I'm hearing things like, oh, well, I was around, I set my intentions, I let it be known, and then, a few of the founders of modern improv vouched for you, right?
Right.
With 2 inarguable comedy geniuses who then took you under their wing and then like put you in charge of a lot of important videos with celebrities. Like, it feels like maybe we're underplaying your ability to network. That's a dirty word, but like make friends basically, and then the trust that's implicit in friendship then run with and like pay off. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like that's the difference maybe between some other like digital hits is like, oh, like if Will Ferrell is vouching for you and also you've got all these hits on these great videos, that's a different thing than just some funny videos. Do you know what I mean? And I think Funny or Die does have a little bit of that sheen, perhaps.
Right. I was the head writer too, if the title helped a little bit.
Yeah. I feel like we're underplaying a lot of things happening that kind of all culminated into some studio movies. It's not like you just had like some views,
Right. But also, I think kind of the thing we're not talking about, which I'm ascertaining from all this, is like kind of the confidence that you've built up by the time you're pitching to Lionsgate or pitching to CBS. It's your first big movie you're ever pitching on. You're going in and you're nervous and you're like, please let me do this. And you're asking for permission. It sounds more like you've been surrounded by these kind of A-list people, especially in the comedy world. They've trusted you. You've established. You have like this probably a comfort with working with comedic actors. With you're the head writer, so you have a mastery of story. You've directed all this stuff, so you have the technical part down. And so, I think maybe I was underplaying it, and I'm sure part of it is coming like from my own insecurities or whatever. But I feel like, because back in the day when we were doing things for Atom Film and Super Deluxe and all those companies, like if someone came to me and said like, hey, you can pitch on a Lionsgate feature, I'd be like, okay, like what am I supposed to do? And then I would just kind of beg them to like me, and that's like the best way to not get a job. So it sounds like the training ground you had, like starting as an assistant, but kind of becoming the head writer and all that, it's almost like you're like running SNL at this point, except it just happens to be on the internet, right? And so,
I agree, yeah. And I think that's how people thought of Funny or Die at that time too. It was like the internet SNL. So it was at the height of respect for that website too.
Yeah. So what'd you say at your pitch to get all these movies?
What did I say? One of them, there was like a smoothie mentioned in the movie. So one pitch, I brought smoothies to the executives to be like,
really?
let's all have a smoothie and make a smooth movie. I didn't do it like that.
Sure. But it worked, though.
But I
They
like
went for it.
brought a thing
You
with
said
me.
smoothie, smooth movie?
I don't think so.
I'm going to pretend you did.
Maybe I did. Something like that.
Yeah.
I punned it up in some cool way.
That's really funny, too, because I feel like if a friend of mine was like, hey, I'm really excited. I'm pitching my first big studio movie. I'm going to bring smoothies. It's like a thing. It's in the script that they have. I would be like, hey.
Yeah.
That's really cool, but maybe don't do that. You know, like
I was so pumped about it.
You got it. So like, what do I know, right? Like,
I was like looking for shit in the other movie because I didn't bring anything to the other movies, but I was like looking for it. You know, it has to make sense.
Yeah. That's interesting.
I'm telling you, when you have a crazy idea and people tell you don't do it, just do it anyway if you're excited about it. Because I was pitching this show about Jesus. Like, what if Jesus just like lived in LA and was trying to like not follow in his father's footsteps? Just trying to be like a normal dude. And we did like a show for Adam Film for Comedy Central's website. And then they were like, come in and pitch us as a TV show. And I was like, dude, to my co-creator who played Jesus, I was like, dude, you got to come in as Jesus. Like that is the show, is like Jesus is pitching a show about himself. You know, it's like the Seinfeld moment. And everyone's like, no, do not have him dress up as Jesus. Do not do it. That's the dumbest thing. Oh, they're going to think you're so desperate. And guess what? We didn't sell the show. So, and we didn't do it. And so I feel like we should have done it.
Right. You should have done it.
Because that is the show. So smooth movie.
Bring a thing. Have a thing.
Yeah.
It gives you extra things to talk about and do. And then they're like, oh my God, she brought smoothies. That's so great. Oh my God, Jesus was here. That's so great.
Crazy. Were you taking pitches when you were at Gary Sanchez before? Like, were you in the room? Were you watching other people pitch at all?
Occasionally I would be in the room for a pitch. Not very often, but at Funny or Die, I was in the room for pitches all the time. That was a lot of Funny or Die.
So that helps
pitching.
you too, right?
Yeah, Funny or Die, we were pitching all the time to each other, to celebrities, to producers. You're just trying to get your thing made all the time.
Right. Because it is sort of that competitive thing, right? When you're pitching to a celebrity, only one sketch gets made, right? So there's a room full of writers who all want to, get Marion Cotillard to think they're funny.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And she's only going to pick one tite idea.
That's right.
Wait, so this is a general question that I'm sure highly depends what the answer is, but when you go and pitch on these features, like how much are you changing the script, like in your pitches? Like, do you try to come with new ideas story-wise and things? Or are you kind of mainly focusing on the visuals and the execution of the script?
Both. It depends too, like how much I liked the script. Like I had to like it at least a little bit or be hooked on something to want to pitch on it. But one of the movies that I was pitching on, it was called White Girl Problems. And the original script of it had so much to do with Twitter. It was one of those movies that got bought off a Twitter handle. And it was all about this girl's Twitter followers and how many followers she had. And there was like a counter on the screen about the followers. And I was like, this is the dumbest part of the movie. There's a relationship with her and her nanny that feels very maternal and cool and funny. It should be an action movie about those two the girl loses her phone, gets stolen. And so they go on like a big chase to get her phone back. And I'm like, that's the movie. No one gives a shit about Twitter, especially any time like in the future anyway. So for that movie, I went in and I was like, it needs to all be rewritten.
Right. Twitter's going to go away in like 2 years.
Who does Twitter anymore? But just like for a movie, I was like, no, I don't care about this for an hour and a half.
The stakes can't be like, how many followers do you have?
Absolutely. And then for Desperados, I went in and didn't really have a lot of notes on it. It had been a script for like more than 10 years. It had almost gotten made several times before. It probably had notes from everybody that read it before me, and it was in great shape. And I was like, I have a couple of ideas on stuff, but I wasn't going in with a whole ton of rewrites. So it was like, these are the things I like about it. Here's how I see this part of it. And just showing visuals to match up with those ideas.
Can I ask you about Desperados real quick?
Sure.
Because I'm curious. So the premise, I haven't seen the movie, but I saw the trailer. And the premise is that Nasim Pedrad has fallen for this guy who ghosts her. And so she sends him like the meanest, angriest text of all time. And then she finds out he's been in a car accident. He lost his phone. and he's in Mexico. And so now her and her friends need to go find his phone before he finds it and delete that message so that she doesn't ruin her chances with him. It's like really similar to Road Trip, right?
Absolutely. It's
premise
Road
of that
Trip,
movie.
and I think there's another one like that.
Were they related to each other?
They're not related, but it's that thing of I have to get to the email or the letter before that person does. It's we've seen that part before, that idea. But, it's funny with three ladies in Mexico getting into trouble.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Road Trip, I feel like that premise, even though that movie's so old, like that premise is still so fresh. And I guess you guys kind of flipped the script, flipped the geography and flipped the genders and stuff.
Right. And it's hard too, like with it's being an email. So we had to make sure like he can't be near his, like we have to explain where his computer is, his phone is. He can't go check his email on someone else's phone. Like there was too many things to think about, but we pulled it off, I think.
I'm assuming that's part of the Mexico thing. Like he's kind of in this place where he just doesn't have access to.
Yeah, he's stuck in the hospital. His things are at the resort and he can't get to them.
So talking about Desperados, you've done TV work kind of in between, but like what felt different and what felt the same, more importantly, between those kind of early scrappy days and your like, big budget, like, real capital D director jobs? Like what skills transferred over when you were grateful to have like cut your teeth at Funny or Die? Do you feel like there were things where it was like, haha, and what was surprisingly different?
Well, I'm always a little flexible with stuff because of Funny or Die. So we were always figuring out how to do something on the cheap or cheat it or make the location work as 3 different locations or so. I think those skills come in handy for sure whenever I'm shooting. So I'll be a little flexible about a location because I can figure out like, oh, we'll only look that way. So that
production office is going to be a cafe. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
It'll be fine. That wall looks weird, but we'll just look over here. So that stuff came in handy because even, I guess it's true for every project. There's never enough money, no matter how much money you have. So, it was always being told to me, we don't have enough money for this. And so you're just figuring out where to make those sacrifices or be flexible in those choices.
I'm curious about tone. How does the comedic tone in a feature differ from a Funny or Die video? Because I find that if I'm trying to make a 3-minute video that is kind of has a similar tone to a movie, it like kind of is boring. But if you try to make a movie that has a similar tone to a video, it's just dumb. Do you agree? Or like I think when you're making the Funny or Die video, yeah, sorry to interrupt, but like your instinct is to just get as many laughs as fast as possible. And when you're doing a movie, you want the story to track, right?
I totally agree with you.
The characters to be compelling.
When you're making those videos, it's like they're going to click away in 10 seconds. And so you have to like make something happen right away and keep attention and it's like a little explosion and then it's over. But in a movie, you got time to breathe. There's characters to develop and relationships. And so there's all kinds of nuance that I didn't get to think about when I was making Funny or Die videos. Which and you know what, to back to the pitching part of things, part of my pitch was always like, this is the style that I work in. And I come from Funny or Die where we made these quick things, but now I'm excited to think about relationships and storylines and like, so I talked it out with them of like, maybe they were concerned, like she's only done 3-minute videos. Like, how do we know that she can do a whole movie? Is she going to be aware of the story? But I was like trying to answer those questions in the pitch and explain, like, I realize there's a story here and there's an arc visually and storytelling wise. And here's where I see the characters going. And so you have to touch on all those things.
Yeah, I love the idea of kind of just getting in front of things that maybe people are apprehensive about and signaling in pretty overt ways, like, hey, I've got it. Like, I'm going to blow you away on every front, even the ways that maybe you think I might be a little deficient in. That's great.
I think that's interesting about you mentioned letting things breathe. If there was a time like 5 years ago where like all these YouTubers were making feature films, and I felt like, to me, that my biggest issue with a lot of those movies was that they never like let anything breathe. They're just like kind of hitting you over the head like nonstop. It's interesting. I guess like when you're pitching on a feature and you're coming from like a web background, like you said, like how you kind of show people that you get it, that you're a movie person, you're not a TikToker.
And also like by putting a positive spin on it, I think is interesting. You don't want to plant the fear in their head of like, oh, well, maybe LP is just a TikToker. So you wouldn't say like, don't worry, everyone, I'm not a TikToker. I'm really a filmmaker. Like you skip that part and you go straight to the, here's the ways in which I'm a filmmaker as is the tech to take.
Yeah, explain to them what you're going to do, how you're going to make it into a movie and how it's going to feel. And that's what all those pitches are, is like breaking down the script into the chunks that you like, talking about things that you're excited about, showing them images of other movies that it feels similar to. I always talk about the characters, story arcs, things I want to hit that, make sure the audience sees while we're watching.
Were you always drawn to comedy? Because we've talked about like how you've sort of tracked this whole thing. Do you ever think like, oh, I spent my whole career in comedy, maybe I want to try something a little bit different? Or, have you dabbled in things, or is it just like through and through comedy?
Always comedy, through and through. Always like, a little kid watching SNL and trying to be funny and tell jokes. And when I figured out that improv was a thing, I fell in love with that. And it's always been comedy. Never a desire to like be on set where people are crying or going through a tragedy. It's so much fun to be on a comedy set.
And you still get to like make people cry and blow things
sometimes,
up every once in a while too.
Yeah,
right?
For sure. Yeah.
So I think the other thing, we've talked a lot about how fun it was at the dawn of internet comedy. What advice would you have to filmmakers who are maybe in college right now or looking to break in some way? Because things have shifted a couple times since then and now, right? Do you see any sort of patterns, or do you have any sort of advice for people who are trying to kind of cut their teeth the way you did back in the day?
I think it's just important to make stuff, like whether that's filming something or writing something, just try to generate stuff, because that's what people will start asking for. Once they see something, they'll ask for another thing. So like, it's important to just keep going, honing your voice, finding something that can be like a calling card for you.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how things transition once we're kind of people are back into production and people can congregate again, because I feel like you touched on UCB as kind of like was a early grounds for people to kind of congregate and meet each other and participate with one another, and then obviously Funny or Die and all of that. Like I feel like now things have splintered a little bit, and there are tons of individuals who are on TikTok or on Twitter, like, and their voices are getting amplified, and like we're seeing more funny people than you could ever have in a handful of theaters in New York and LA. But I think we do need that physical space, and in the case of like, videos, like resources, like those TikTokers are doing incredible things, but I want to put them all in a space that's not just a party house and see what we get. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't wait. That's going to come, and it's going to be a couple years from now, I think. But like that next wave is going to be really exciting.
Yeah. Figuring out where the spot to like meet all the comedy people and network and make friends so that you're all coming up together and helping each other. Where is that going to be?
But so on the TV end of things, you went from this place where you probably had a ton of control on set, and you probably wrote a lot of the stuff you're directing or involved in the pitching of it. How does it change when you go to TV, and especially in a comedy world where you're like the guest and they're the established people? Like how do you direct comedic performances when on someone else's TV show, I guess?
TV is very funny because, you go in as the director and you're not in charge. The showrunner's in charge. So I just go in, with that mindset. I'm here to help facilitate getting this episode made. It's not really my job to like comment on the story of the script. If something's sticking out and I have a question, sure. But I'm really there to like execute the day, get the logistics together, And then performance-wise, I love working with actors and making things funny on the day and talking about performance. And so hopefully I've talked to the showrunner and producers in tone meetings or whatever before we've started shooting about, how far did you want this scene to go, or how crazy should this be? And so hopefully I have an idea before we get there. But it's really like a collaboration with that showrunner on shooting day of like what they need to get, what they want, and what their notes are. And it's a funny job to like go in as the director and so much less than everyone else who's been there working on the show.
Well, do you think it's part of your job to make a scene funny when you're doing TV?
I guess it's like all of our jobs to make it funny, it's not just my job. But sure, yeah, like let's set this up funny so that the blocking assists with that, and the location, let's make all these elements work towards it being funny, and then hopefully the performance delivers on if the lines are funny. I think it's everybody's job.
Yeah, because I guess like when you are directing your own thing, if you are doing a Funny or Die video, or you're doing a short film or a pilot presentation that you wrote or something, or even a feature, I think it's in your power to say like, this isn't as funny as I thought it should be. Like, let's figure out how to make it funnier. But when you're a guest on a TV show and it's like, not that funny, and you didn't write it, and you're not performing it, and you're not the DP that set the look,
Sometimes
like
the star is an EP as well. Like there's a lot of ownership in that room on that stage that's not yours. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to keep all those people happy. It's really more so than make the show funny. I think it's like just keeping the line producer happy. I didn't go over a ton of hours. Keep the showrunner happy. The performances are good. We're getting all the lines that they wrote. We're getting all the alts that they wanted. Keep the actors happy. They feel creative and like they're in the right place and doing the right thing. And so it's just like a lot of managing that without too much interjecting of like, well, I think this should be that.
Yeah. I remember once shadowing with a very, very experienced director. And I kind of early on was like, hey, do you ever want to do kind of a cool establishing shot, maybe like a little crane move? It was a big show. They had all sorts of toys. And he was like, I'm going to start the camera on the first person speaking because everything before that will get cut.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's true. That makes sense. That's the nature of it. He was very kind about it.
Sure.
He was like, listen, kid, I've had a lot of cool shots cut in my day. So,
right.
So figure out another way to do it for sure.
Right. Especially those shows that are trying to keep it to whatever 22 minutes or whatever it is. It's like any of that extra stuff definitely gets cut. A bunch of good stuff in their script will get cut.
So what's your status now? Are you kind of like a full-time TV and features director? What's your kind of day-to-day now? Oh,
it's so sad. My day-to-day now is is just getting through the day, slogging through, figuring out how not to be bored. But
yeah, podcasting.
I'm podcasting. This is a delight to talk to two human beings outside of my home.
I don't know if we'd consider us human
beings.
You
have a cute dog, though.
I have a cute dog right behind me. I'm doing 2 episodes of Tacoma FD next month. And so, yeah, I just got back from New York. I did 2 episodes of a new show coming to Peacock called Girls 5 Eva. So, yeah, I'm just, reading scripts and trying to get staffed on shows and figuring out what my next movie might be. And
when you say staffed, you mean as
staff
a writer?
As a director, sorry.
Yeah. So you're at a place now where you kind of hang out and people send you stuff? Are you kind of in this awesome place where it's like you no longer like have to hustle as much, or do you feel like the hustle never ends?
The hustle never ends, but I do at least have reps who send me scripts to read and reps who put me up for jobs. But a lot of things, still come down to like, did I know this person whose show is going and we were friends, or I know that person that I met long ago at Funny or Die, or it still matters that you are checking in with people and reminding people you're around. And now is a weird time too. I can't tell if things are like in production or it's slow, or I can't tell what's happening right now.
So now that you've tasted the sweet, sweet nectar of TV and studio film money, do you still write at all? Do you like ever sit down and say like, I'm going to write a script? I do. I have a script that I'm working on that I haven't touched in probably a couple months,
But yeah, I do when I can get myself motivated. I do.
Would you be down to join us for some unpaid endorsements?
I'm so down.
Unpaid endorsements. So my unpaid endorsement is, you guys, Freaks and Geeks is on Hulu. It had been off and on streamers for a while. You know, if you didn't bother to buy the box set, 15 years ago, and it's been a minute since you've revisited that show, it's been nice to just kind of like drop back into something that is bittersweet and strange. And this time around, there's a handful of episodes where you're like, I don't know how people are supposed to feel about this. Like, I know it is funny, but this is kind of sad and pretty dark. Boy, there's an episode where Lindsay and Daniel have gotten caught cheating, and Daniel does this kind of like big monologue that he did for Lindsay earlier, and then he does again in front of all the teachers, and Lindsay just starts laughing in his face while everyone is confused by him. Fade to black, end of episode.
Do you have to watch it in order, or can you? I just watch any random
It's worth
episode?
it to watch it in order, and there's not a good reason not to. Like it's pretty segmented, it's pretty episodic, but there is like a mild arc to everybody, and they do kind of try and give it a semi-satisfying ending because they knew that the show was getting canceled when they made it. So yeah, that's my endorsement. Freaks and Geeks. Just 15 years later. But it's on Hulu if you've got Hulu. So LP, what you got?
I got one. It's also an older TV show, but I've been binging it nonstop. It's called Ink Master. It's a reality show where people get tattooed, and sometimes the tattoos are bad. And there's judges, and they'll be like, yo, that lady has 2 right feet. Her face is jacked up. It looks like a cover-up. And that person's got to live with it for the rest of their life.
Wait, it's not the show where people have super messed up tattoos and they want to get them fixed.
No, but I'm going to need to find that show after this one.
There's like a Tattoo Nightmares or something. I forget what it's called. But it's like, yeah, my ex-boyfriend's face is on my entire back. Turn it into my daughter's face. And it's like,
I'm going to love
it's going to take us 45 sessions. Let's
go. Do love the idea of somebody getting a tattoo as practice, and also it's a reality show. Like, is it timed? Like, are they
Some of them are timed. There's challenges where they've got to, do this one all in black and gray. You have 6 hours, go. And
it's on a real person.
It's on a real person every time. And at the end, the finale is always a 35-hour, like, huge back piece that this person didn't pick out.
Oh, no.
No, come on.
This person did not pick out. They've just volunteered. Maybe they're getting paid.
I hope they're getting paid. You can't get paid a month. All right. So everyone, how much money do you have to be paid to get a tattoo on your back? It doesn't have to be a full back tattoo. Just like, like a modest, visible, but size. It's a real tattoo. Like one people would notice if you were swimming. Right.
I would do it for $1 million.
That's pretty high, Oren.
$1 million.
Yeah.
I don't get to know what it's going to be.
You don't get to know what it is, but it's not going to be.
Well,
it can be embarrassing in so much as it could be bad, but they're trying their hardest, and it's not inflammatory or lewd or anything
right,
like that.
But someone's going to just put like a weird skull on my back, and I'm going to be bummed out.
Something too hard, like something that like tries to be like really tough, would be a nightmare for me. Maybe $1 million is the right number.
Or like a thorn. I mean, look, I have friends that have like a bazillion tattoos and they wouldn't care at all. I have no tattoos and I probably won't have any. So to me, it would be like a really big deal. But I remember there was this episode of James Corden, and he had the guys from One Direction on, and they were playing some like Russian roulette type of game where one of them, if James Corden lost, he would have to get a 1D tattoo. And if one of the One Direction guys lost, they would have to get a James Corden tattoo, a JC or something like that, or the Tonight Show, something really dumb. And James Corden had never had any tattoos, and he was so scared. And it was just down to James Corden and Harry Styles at the very end. And Harry Styles got like whatever he pulled. The box he opened said he had to get the tattoo, and he had like 80 tattoos. He's like, yeah, just put it on here. Who cares? Like it was no big deal. But for James Corden, it was like a pivotal moment in his life. So I think it's all relative.
Oren, what you got, buddy?
I'm going to give 2. They're 2 bad ones, so I'm going to give 2 of them real fast. Number 1, YouTube. You guys check out this website. Guys, I had to tile a backsplash in my kitchen with zero experience. Watch YouTube. I'll post some pictures on our website of our new backsplash. It's pretty freaking amazing.
Did you have to cut any tile?
Yes, I borrowed a wet saw from my stepdad, who loves getting amazing deals on things, which is why every single tile pretty much is chipped. But, once you grout it and everything, I think it's covered up. No one will notice. But it's awesome. I'm like super excited. And today we had this like professional tile guy come here to do like this other, like a more complicated tiling thing at my house. And my wife's like, what do you think of our tile job? And I was like, do not ask like a professional what he thinks of our tile job. And he was like, look, no matter what, you're always going to be proud that like you did this backsplash in your house. So I just want to thank YouTube for that. And then another thing on YouTube is, and I'm sure everyone knows about this or will like by the time this comes out, but there's this short film from Lulu Wang, who directed The Farewell, called Nian, Nian, I think. And it's shot 100% on the iPhone 12 Pro, and it looks like, I don't know if you guys saw The Farewell. That's like an incredibly visually, like an incredibly shot movie. And this is at that same level, but it is shot on an iPhone, and it looks so good. Like you can't even compare it to like that snowball fight shot on the iPhone 11. From last year, Nian, and there's a making of behind the scenes, and like they do all these handheld shots with the stabilized iPhone. It's just incredible. It was colored at MPC, and it's got like A-list everyone behind the camera, but the fact that they shot it on an iPhone is it's really amazing. So anyhow, those are my two things to check out.
Well, LP, thank you so much. How can people learn more about you and keep track of all of your fun, cool projects in the future?
You could follow me on Twitter, I guess. I think I'm LPZ10 on Twitter. LPEEZY10.
Twitter, the website you ripped on during your feature pitch.
It's just not good for steaks.
Okay, what's the handle one more time?
LPZ10.
There you go. LPZ10. Well, you can follow the show at Just Shoot It Pod across all social media. You can go to justshootitpod.com to check out the things that we talked about and links to LPZ10, for instance. And you can follow me at Mr. Bad Enlow.
I'm at Smitey Pyleg on Twitter. I'm at OKaplan on Instagram. And we love to hear from you. Email us at justshootitpod@gmail.com. This episode was edited by the amazing Sarah Weirda. Our social media master is Derek Aiello, and the music you're listening to is from the Free Music Archive and the artist Jahzzar, and we will catch you next time.
Thanks, everyone.